Well, welcome everyone to today's webinar entitled Do You Want to Be Rich or King? Today I have with me Jackie Grenay. She's actually the owner or partners of TAB Suffolk County in Long Island. She's been with TAB for 22 years, but she's presenting with us today because she's also the CEO and founder of 7 Star HR. It's a national company that provides shared HR support and services, everything from legal, compliance, policy, procedure, hiring, and performance. And Jackie's going to spend about 45 minutes with us today talking about how to really leverage your greatest asset, which is your people. I'll just give a little bit of housekeeping for those people who are joining at the moment. As we're going along, if you have any questions or would like to ask a question at the end, in the panel down the side, you should be seeing the questions panel or even the chat panel. I'll be checking both. So please type your questions throughout the webinar, and at the end we'll have times for a Q&A session. But welcome, Jackie. I'm so glad to have you here today.
Thanks, Jody, for the kind introduction, and thank all of you for attending. As Jody said, I have an interesting background which helps me present on this topic. And as part of TAB for the last 20 years, I have spent over 10,000 hours coaching business owners. You might imagine dealing with employees, hiring, culture might come up a time or two during those hours. What I want to talk to you today is something no matter where you are in your business cycle, you have total control over. In a nutshell, this presentation is going to cover how you approach your job as head of your organization and how HR can help make you more profitable. So I don't know if all of you have had the opportunity to take our Rich versus King assessment in the preparation for this presentation. If you didn't and still want to, you still can. Just jot this URL down and log in. You will be emailed the answer, the result of how close you are to being a king versus being rich. So what the heck am I talking about on being rich versus being the king? You know, kings are geniuses, and most of us who started a business started as the king because we were the only employee that the company had. And then we started adding employees. And regarding employees, kings usually shine at the meeting, make the decisions, do all of the thinking, decide where the company's going, have all the answers. But unfortunately, what happens is they only use about 20 to 50% of their employees' capabilities. They don't have to be real super employees. And if the king is doing all of the work, the big picture work, 10,000-foot work, the employees are probably not going to grow within the organization. So rich are genius makers rather than geniuses themselves. The rich owner actually will develop their people to be geniuses. There's a great book that I think describes genius makers called Multipliers by Liz Wiseman, which describes the rich versus the king type of leader in large companies and in small companies. And I highly recommend you, if you are on the journey to become rich, that you get this book and and take a look. Okay, so in difference to those that are kings, those that are rich make everyone around them smarter and more capable. They extract each person's unique intelligence. They create an atmosphere of innovation, collaboration, and productive effort. And interestingly enough, they extract 70 to 120% of an employee's capabilities, according to the research done in preparation for publishing the Multipliers book. So given these two styles of management, which do you think is going to get you to achievement of your goals? So if I have convinced you that being rich is the type of leader you want to be, the next question I need to ask you is, are you willing to personally make the changes you need to take you down the path to being rich? If so, this is where HR comes into the picture. Kings only need to ensure they are compliant with HR laws, and some kings don't even care if they're compliant with HR laws. But if you want to be rich, you really need to focus on your behaviors and how you deal with and manage your human capital. And so I've got 6 different areas here that I'm going to talk with you about in detail about being rich. So the first thing that when I look at a company to quickly see where they are in the rich versus king is I look at 2 things: how decisions are being made in the organization and what the organization chart looks like. If the owner is in the hub in this picture and all the decisions are made through the hub, going out to an employee, but coming back to the hub before going to another employee, or if the organization chart is flat and everyone reports to the owner, I know we are in a king situation. So that doesn't, as I said, when you start a company, you have to be king. The next thing that I look to identify is if you want to stay a king or if you want to become rich. One of the things that I look at in the process is delegating, which is really one of the first steps in becoming rich. Owners often have time management issues. Can you imagine that? And I know I do. Delegation is one of their biggest potential solutions to their time management issue. But I've often heard business owners that I've worked with over the years concerned that things might be done incorrectly, hurting their company's reputation. And one of the things I work to convince business owners of is that if someone can do something 85% as well as you do them, you should delegate. That being said, because delegating is hard for some, I propose these 5 levels of delegation. So the first level is you ask them to research options and you make the decision, the very lowest level of delegation. The next is give me alternatives with pluses and minuses and recommendations. I'm still going to make the decision. The next is do all those things plus advise me of your plan of action, but don't act until I authorize you to act. So you can see we're making some progress here. The next is advise me of your plan of action and proceed unless I tell you otherwise. So that might mean that the person you're delegating to isn't in the know of all of the things going on, and things may be changing really quickly. And the last is proceed with your plan and don't advise me. Just get it done. Delegation is really a great way of training people on things, especially things that are going to repeat. I'm not sure that you should delegate something that's only going to happen once, because delegation is a planning process also, and a training process. You do need to choose the level carefully, though, you're going to use. I don't advise, if something is going to be done wrong that might destroy your entire company, you start with level 5. It's certainly not where I would start from a delegation standpoint. So when should you delegate? Obviously, we talked about this. If you don't have time to complete tasks, if the tasks really are below your pay grade or don't require your personal attention, sometimes we all have an time where we say, oh, I just want to get this done, so I'm going to do it, even though it's way below my pay grade. Probably not the best, unless it's something that never will come up again. Your skill or expertise is really not required to do the job. I've seen many business owners doing administrative tasks, and that certainly shouldn't require their skill or expertise. Sometimes it's quite the opposite. The people that they should be delegating to have a lot more skill or expertise in administration. Your reputation or the company's will not be hurt significantly, I usually say. And the last is when someone would grow from completing the task. And this helps you really, as the important one actually for this rich versus king discussion is helping an employee grow, the last one. And it helps you in 2 ways. It's making the company less dependent on you. Why is that important? Well, if you ever want to exit, it increases the value of your company. And 2, it engages and grows employees, which will retain them and make them a better part of your team. Is there a risk? Of course. Risk is they might make a mistake. This is why you want to delegate, not abdicate a responsibility. Abdication is handing it off and never even thinking about what happens again. Delegation does require some follow-up to say, how did it go? What did they say? And gives you the training opportunity to say, if you don't like what happened, next time you might want to think about doing X, Y, Z. Another thing that is extremely important is the culture of your company. Bottom line, culture is what makes your company a place you want to work or not. How many business owners I've dealt with that says, I hate going to work. I'd rather work from home. I don't like the way people are talking and interacting with each other. And that's because they're not in control of their culture. What impacts culture in a workplace? Really, the short answer is everything. It's a multitude of factors that play a role in developing workplace culture. Leadership impacts it the most. Employees don't leave jobs, they leave leaders and managers. This means workplace practices, policies and philosophies, the people you hire and their beliefs and values, the clarity of your mission, vision, and values are all things that are going to really impact your culture and make it a lovely place to work with low turnover, easy to recruit new employees, and actually assists in getting those employees onboarded quickly. Interesting to know, job candidates, as they're looking, evaluate your organization and its culture. So you need to communicate culture not only through the people that are looking for the hiring manager, but also through your LinkedIn profile, your website. You want to make it look like this is a great place for people to work. A strong, positive, clearly defined, and well-communicated culture attracts talent that really fits into your organization and is going to help you in that rich versus king scenario. So most of us as small business owners let our workplace culture form naturally without defining what we want it to be, and that's really a mistake. We create policies not based on the environment. We may say these are the policies from another company. We hire employees that don't fit, maybe relatives, maybe friends. We tolerate management styles in the others that manage around us that threaten employee engagement. We may not create a clear and inspiring vision and values. We don't consider how our actions or inactions affect the formation of our culture. It's important to take a step back, evaluate and define your workplace culture, both what it is now and what you want it to be in the future, and how all of these factors either contribute or take away from your desired culture. Culture is always a work in progress. It can and will change. You need to keep your eye on it, especially if you're hiring new managers, because they may impart what they think the culture should be versus what you want the culture to be. You need to make culture as important as your business strategy. It's just really too significant to ignore. And shaping it is one of the most important responsibilities as leaders and for HR professionals who are involved with companies. A real important piece towards being rich. So, one quick way to determine where you are in your rich versus king journey is to start with our HRMI. It covers all of the things listed here, and what you can do is take this URL down. It's free to you who attend this conference or this presentation, and it will give you all sorts of information on the things that we talked about here, the compliance with the law, whether your employees are at risk of leaving, whether they're money-saving HR ideas, and finding out if employee training is really helping or not. The next is, are you making your job easier for yourself? Is leadership development a top concern at your organization? If you want to be rich, it should be. It's safe to say that many of your company's leaders in the next 10 to 15 years will be millennials. A lot of people still see millennials in their minds as college students or just starting their careers. But the reality is they're now up to their late 30s, 38 or 39, and many of them are well into their careers with plenty of experience under their belt, not to mention they've already become the largest generation in the workforce right now. So the steps that you need to take to prepare for the future is you need to determine the org chart for the next 5 to 10 years. Now that sounds easy and not, but what you need to do is really work with your strategic group, and you need to say, what roles will we need in the future? You don't have to put a name on them. They're just roles. What's going to be hard to fill that will open up? So-and-so is going to retire. Any new roles? And then you need to use assessments to benchmark those behaviors, motivators, soft skills, hard skills that are needed to fill that position. The next step is look within your own company. Who is a high potential employee? If you have some, train them using coaching. That's from you. Mentoring, that can be from others outside, and self-directed learning. So we utilize something called Next Generation Leaders, and these are the things that we try to teach second in commands: how to lead through change, how to lead teams, how do I develop a culture of ownership? You know, we say employees are either visitors, renters, or owners in their mentality. And what we want is owners not of the company, but owning their own job. We want to teach them client leadership, how to become a trusted advisor, how to lead the stakeholders and handle difficult behavior, both of employees and of our clients. None of them ever misbehave for me, do they for you? We also need to teach them about growing the business. And I'm not talking about becoming the salesperson. I'm talking about how to connect and build business relationships, becoming an effective speaker, giving presentations that will help potentially grow the business. So those are the kind of things that need to be leadership training that is a combination of online as well as face-to-face training. And the last thing you might want to do to help start the process of managing employees differently is to do some baseline of assessments. We always start with communication, since without good communication, much of the rest of everything we do doesn't work. And then we might progress to teamwork, et cetera, et cetera. I'm right now working with a not-for-profit who has a mission to help children. And that not-for-profit, they had a great vision. The people were working hard, but communication among the team members was terrible. And in teamwork, and we use 5 dysfunctions of a team. If you haven't gotten that book and read it, that's another one that's fantastic. But we use a questionnaire based on that, saying you need to be able to have some push and pull and honest conversation within the team. And what we found when we assessed this group is that they didn't. Everyone was so sweet and lovely that they never wanted to say one negative thing about anyone else. There are, we've got the crazy situation now where we're dealing with remote and on-site employees, and we have a great pulse employee pulse that some of our people use, send out once a week, kind of just see how are you feeling, what's going on. Again, communication is really important. Oops. Okay, so what is HR's role in helping you become rich? Because it's not only the ones we've discussed, like engagement and culture, but it's most importantly, HR should give you, the business owner, the freedom from having to deal with the HR issues that may be keeping you up at night, the backbiting, the whatever, so that you can focus on the growth of the company. HR should help you lessen your day-to-day responsibilities by developing a plan to help make you a little more redundant anyway, so that you can function at the 10,000-foot view. We talk about 5 levels of problems HR should solve for you. One is strategic HR. Most small businesses do not think of HR as strategic, and yet in this presentation, the switch from being king to being rich is totally strategic. We have a client who owned a holistic grocery. When COVID hit, they went quickly into software development, which was supposed to have been completed this month, but strategically, they needed different talent to get this software completed that would allow people to order online, and they got it accomplished by the end of March. Without HR, this would not have happened. Including HR in the strategic planning of a company, with human capital being one of the company's largest assets, absolutely makes sense. Getting employees engaged. We talked about engagement in a different way, but getting them engaged is one of the best things you can do for your company. We talk about employees who are coming into the company. We talked about that a little bit, but the key factors driving employee engagement is listed here. Do you have any of this in your company? Is there a lack of feeling of freedom to share opinions like there was in the not-for-profit I was talking about? Is acknowledgement of employees done? Is there growth and development? Gallup tells us only 30% of employees are engaged. How many do you think are engaged within your company? And then on the right, if you look at what engagement gives you, this is definitely something your company should be working on. Committed employees, satisfied customers, productive, profitable organization. Who wouldn't want that? Not only does HR fix the issues listed in the bullet points, but they also prevent you from breaking the law when hiring. I hope you all know that the Men Wanted poster is not legal. You have to be very careful when you post an ad. We had a client that put recent graduate in an ad and was sued for age discrimination. Supplement your retirement income and requiring a driver's license are also not allowed. The former is age discrimination, and the latter is disability discrimination, potentially. So what I'm going to do is, these are the issues that we see, so hopefully you're not having these issues. But if you are, what I want to do is give you a little 6 tips to a great hire. And if you go on our website, effectivehiring.com, you can get these steps in a flyer format. A couple of tips out of this a job description is not an ad. It needs to be a marketing piece. You want to sell your company, you want to sell the job, more importantly. A job description isn't going to do that. Don't just use Indeed. A good applicant tracking system will post to many sites. You want to automate as much as you can of the process of hiring and onboarding, and you want to use assessments to verify what people put in the resume. You know, that old adage, trust but verify. And if you hire properly, the other thing you really want to do is retain properly. So I'm going to tell you a story about hiring that we did for a company. They wanted what we call a unicorn, almost impossible to find. And we were so excited because we found them this unicorn. And what did they do? They took the unicorn on the first 3 days and they sat them at a desk and they said, fill out paperwork and here are blueprints. Start looking at blueprints. And that's all they did. At the end of day 3, the person got up and left and never to return. So what's the moral to the story? The moral is retention starts the moment you hire someone. You want to give a good impression from the beginning. So what are some tips? 1, make sure your salary and benefits are comprehensive and equivalent to what's in the marketplace, so someone doesn't take your job while they're really looking for something better. You can go to effectivehiring.com. Again, the cost of a mishire, we have a mishire calculator there that you can put some salary information, etc., and it will really help you. It should help guide you in if screwing up on some of these things, both in hiring and in retention, really cost you. Make sure you don't hire the best of the worst. Don't settle. Sometimes it's painful and you think, my gosh, if I just get a body in here, I can relax and go on. But that is not going to help you over the long term. And make sure that employees are following a leader, whether that be you or somebody that is beneath you that also leads, with clear future direction, who has a relationship with those employees. Your new hire plan should cover a year and include things like mentoring, introducing, maybe even after COVID's over, going out for a meal together, cross-company training, those kind of things. Just some tips. Okay, HR compliance. Oh, this is what people often think that HR is all about. And I hope you understand, it's involved in a whole lot more than just HR compliance. And you have to deal with compliance. And while HR compliance is not going to make you rich, as we've been discussing, it can sure make you poor if you don't follow labor guidelines and are sued, or an audit uncovers issues leading to high fines and fees. As you deal with COVID and what's going on with COVID, policies are changing at an exponential level, right? Handbooks used to be something that you could do it, and maybe every couple of years you could update it. But with the COVID responsibilities, guidelines from CDC in your states changing weekly. This is something that you need to keep track of. One of the biggest complaints I hear of business owners is the lack of accountability of employees. So establishing accountability as part of your culture is extremely important. And this is something HR can help by first establishing measurable key accountabilities for each position, part of the job description, but something more important than all of the nitty-gritty details, those 5 key things that you know are required for this position. Also, creating an employee handbook is extremely important. It communicates to employees what is expected of them, and again, part of onboarding. And job descriptions really are your first line of defense if you are sued, so it's something you really need to do. Once you work with your employees and they understand what's expected, then you need to have a system to manage performance and an automated tracking system for reviews, whether that's annually, monthly, for individuals and teams. And the last thing here is the employee relations issues. I love this picture, certainly following the dress code of the company, I'm sure. But employee relations can be really mind-numbing for business leaders. And having a person where employees can be heard is extremely important to their retention. They also can help with investigations if one person seems to be harassing another, making sure company rules are being followed, and dealing with the mundane of who's late and who's picking on whom. So I wanted to just spend a couple minutes here telling you what our process is from 7-Star HR. We've given you the first step, and hopefully you'll use it, is the comprehensive assessment, and including surveying your employees. We ask Net Promoter Score type questions, like on a scale of 1 to 10. If you have the opportunity to take a job, same distance from home, same salary, same, how likely are you to take it? It will tell you what's going on with your culture. And lastly here, we do use a team approach. So we say that you're really getting multiple people when you're getting a 7-star consultant. Sometimes you may need a hiring specialist, sometimes a project management specialist, etc. So Jody's going to open us up to questions. Here are 3 we get asked often, and so there are the answers. But if there are others, I'd love to help you answer those. Any HR issue.
Great, thanks, Jackie. Just a reminder, if you do have any questions, please type them in the chat or question box, and I'll definitely ask Jackie for you. But just to kick things off, Jackie, one of the things that especially small to medium-sized businesses struggle with when it comes to competing for the same workforce with larger companies is being competitive on benefit packages. What do you advise, the smaller to medium-sized business owner? How can they compete when some of these larger organizations have 401k match and better benefits packages? How can they compete in other ways, and what do you recommend there?
Well, if you have a great insurance broker they will put together a cafeteria type plan. I think you really need to have that, especially if you have a workforce that has kids and you may want some of those kind of benefits, Jody. I think the biggest thing that you need to do, though, is maybe ensure that salaries are competitive. I find that, and if you talk to even some people who have been at the big companies, they really aren't as interested in salary and benefits as they are in learning and planning for the future. So while you should be able to get something put together, and I think that you really need to focus on your culture and making it a fun place to be and an exciting one to be able to learn.
Great. And then obviously remote workforces, it's could be a huge shift in the way that workforces exist in the future. You may have a hybrid where some people are in your business location, some working remotely. And you mentioned, and I agree 100% how important culture is. How do you enroll a remote employee, especially one that you've hired remotely, to really be enrolled in your culture? How do you monitor that when a lot of it isn't in front of a camera? They're working maybe at a computer or doing things remotely. How do you enroll them in your culture?
So I think some of the things that you do on you would do if they were face to face, Jody, they should be having maybe lunch with some of the other employees. Now, lunch is in quotes because that may be we send Uber Eats to your house and someone else also is on site with lunch, and you talk and you chat and you understand what's going on with each other. I also think mentorship is an extremely important thing. And some people are cut out to be mentors and some are not. But if you have some place for that employee to understand kind of how to get things done and how to navigate through the system and what they can expect, especially if the culture is great, will help get them engaged into the new culture.
Awesome. Just a reminder, everyone, if you have a question, please type it in. We've probably got another 6 minutes to go. I've noticed, and I'm maybe even guilty of this myself, is that, that below your pay grade or unable to delegate. It feels like a vicious cycle for a lot of business owners, right? I have no time to train. It'll take me 5 minutes. I'll just do it versus allocating things. How do you deal with clients who have a problem with delegation, and why do you think so many business owners have problems with delegation?
I think there are two major reasons. One, it's just easier than asking someone, as you said. And two, I know if I do it myself, it'll get done right, which may or may not be true. But so how do I get people to delegate? I think the first thing is look at what is taking you all the time. And of course, as I said before, if this is something that will never be needed again, Jody, then you certainly should not bother delegating it. Just spend the 5 minutes, get it done, and be done with it. But if you can make it into a learning for someone else, and then you're much better investing the time to save yourself time in the future. It's a hard concept to wrap your arms around, and but if you really are up to your eyeballs in having no time, having work, then you really need to have a talk with yourself and say, what am I doing? Let me do a kind of a look at what I did today. I don't recommend this whole taking, time to write down every single thing you did, because you don't have time in the first place. So taking time to do that is kind of silly from my standpoint. But if you can look back at a day or an hour and say, what are the things that I either am not that good at, don't like doing, or is way below my pay grade? Are there things in there? And if so, what can I delegate and to whom can I delegate, and what is going to be required? Some of the stuff is, again, cross-training. If you train one person, you might institute cross-training so that you have more than one person able to do the same thing. And if you get someone that's good at what they do, I mean, I know in my office, Kathleen has been with me 6 or 7 years, and she knows lots, but I'm continuing to give her new things to delegate so that I can continue to rise up to higher level things and get her to do some that are maybe medium level now. And then she's able to train Kim, who came into our office, on doing some of the things she was doing. So she's now entering all of the coaching sessions for next year into the calendar and sending out invites so that we can get that done. So those are the kind of things, Jody. It is painful, but if you can suffer the pain, especially for something, and I do say when you're training someone to do something, tell them, come with a pencil and paper, you're going to write the procedure if you don't have one. If you do have the procedure on how to do something, then tell them to bring the procedure in, and either they try to do it and vet the procedure for you, or you go through it and say, this procedure is all wrong. We're not doing it right, and have them correct the procedure so that you have some ability, if you have turnover, to not have to teach things in that great a detail. Again, training via procedure.
Great. You also mentioned something that was interesting. First time I'd heard the term, some of your employees are going to be visitors, renters, and then some will be owners. Is it possible to have renters become owners, people and is it okay to have renters and visitors in your business? Not everyone is going to have that entrepreneurial spirit, or are you really looking for an entire organization with that owner mentality? What's your sort of philosophy there?
So my philosophy is you don't want visitors. You may need some renters, but you don't want visitors. Visitors are only there for themselves. They may be chatting up a lot. They may be interrupting other people, but somebody who's just there visiting is not going to be there a long time. Training them is a real pain because they're not going to be there. Renters might be used in specific situations, like if you need something done just over and over again for a short period of time, or it's not anything that you're worried about losing someone. Generally, at all levels, I try to look for people that own their job. They don't have to have an owner mentality so much as own their job. If they wake up at night thinking, OMG, I forgot to do such and such, and call me at 7 o'clock in the morning, They own their job. I have no idea. I can remember when I first brought my partner into TAB. He said to me, we were going out to a board meeting, and he said to me, "Aren't we going to check what's in the bag?" And I said, no, there's a checklist. It's checked off. It's in the bag. It's not my job to check what's in the bag. They own the packing of the bag. And they did, and it was right? Mm-hmm. So as much as you can, owning whatever piece you have of the company as your job is really important.
Awesome. Well, we've hit our time today, Jackie. I want to just thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom. I always love spending some time with you, very wise lady. If you're everyone after this, you'll get a recording. You'll also get a copy of the PowerPoint. There was one question from Ann Johnson about the MRI tiny URL link, and you'll get that in the recording that'll be sent shortly after. There was no password provided. Is there a password needed for that particular?
There will be a password. It's 7.
7. 7 the number or 7 the word?
The word.
Okay, wonderful. Awesome. Well, thank you everyone who joined us today. I hope you got some value, and we'll start thinking about how you can be rich versus a king. And I appreciate everyone's time today, and thank you again, Jackie.
Thanks, guys. Have a good rest of the day. Bye now.
Bye.